Last November, Campaign for Social Justice and I asked you to imagine a country where a prison sentence of 18 months has lasted 18 years, where a man spends 18 years in jail for trying to steal a coat, or is in prison for 11 years for stealing a mobile phone. Sentences described by the UN Rapporteur for torture as an egregious miscarriage of justice and psychological torture. It's unthinkable, isn't it? Yet it's happening right now today in this country.
Behind these bars is a man who has been in prison for 11 years for stealing a mobile phone.
Indeterminate prison terms, or IPP sentences, handed down by UK judges until they were abolished 11 years ago, still affect nearly 3,000 prisoners in England and Wales.
This is one of the most scandalous stories in the British justice system in a long while. The psychological effects on the individuals would amount, in my opinion, depending on an individual assessment, to psychological torture.
IPPs were designed to be given to serious offenders whose crimes didn't warrant a whole life sentence. The problem is IPPs were given out far more widely than initially anticipated. And in many cases they were given to people who had committed low-level crimes.
I understand the issue of IPPP. The Justice Secretary himself has called that a stain on the conscience of the justice system. So it's wrong.
Former Supreme Court Justice Lord Browne called IPP sentences the greatest single stain on our justice system. Justice Secretary Alex Chalk has said the same. And Lord Blunkett, the Labour Home Secretary who introduced these sentences, now regrets them.
There are times in life when you put your hands up. I got my part of it wrong.
Just think about this for a moment. Many people who were in prison for low-level crimes have now been left in prison indefinitely, with no sense of hope, and many end up taking their own lives. In recent years, we've seen a surge in self-inflicted deaths of IPP prisoners in custody. This tragic miscarriage of justice has got to end. The film we posted last November to bring this debate to a wider audience has, with your help, been viewed more than 15 million times. And these are typical of the comments the film is getting. Truly shocking, absolutely horrifying, unbelievable, utterly awful, madness, inconceivable, cruel. The film also featured widely in the recent House of Lords debate.
In this instance, we've got people, for example, a 17-year-old who steals a bike, or people who grab people's mobile phones. This is clearly an injustice, and I find it difficult to believe that anybody listening to this would not agree. The lawyer and campaigner Peter Stefanovic put out an online video about this. It's had 14 million views, and a petition got easily 10,000 signatures to force the government to debate this again. And so there's massive public support for sorting out this issue.
Peter Stefanović's video on the topic, which was mentioned by the Noble Baroness Jones earlier in the first group, I think, has chalked up 14 million views in a matter of months. And the reaction is unanimously one of shock, outrage and disbelief. And as one respondent noted, let's not wait for an ITV drama to do the right thing.
Well, next Tuesday, with amendments tabled in the House of Lords, we have a real opportunity to end this tragic miscarriage of justice, this stain on our justice system once and for all. Now, there are a number of amendments tabled, but the most important for those still serving these sentences and their families is the Simon Brown Memorial Amendment, which would require the state to demonstrate that a prisoner is still a risk to the public, rather than, as at present, requiring the prisoner to prove the opposite. It will make a real difference, and it's supported by Lord Blunkett, the former Labour Home Secretary who introduced the sentences, as well as Baroness Chakrabarti and the former Deputy President of the Supreme Court, Lord Hope. But more importantly, it's also supported by the Labour Party, who have taken a stand for justice, with this from Lord Ponsonby speaking for Labour.
The Noble Lord Moylan, in his Amendment 161, effectively is reversing the burden of proof for IPP prisoners, and he described it as a nudge to the parole board and discussed in his contribution about how significant that nudge would be. But it's a welcome nudge nevertheless. So I think, and it's got the, if you like, the historic credentials of being supported originally by the noble and learned Lord Brown of Eton under Hayward. So again, it's a welcome amendment.
Thank you, Labour, for getting behind this. It's given real hope to so many families caught up in this tragic miscarriage of justice. And now, with Labour's support, if the Lib Dems, Green Party, crossbenchers, bishops and Tory rebels of conscience step up and stand with Labour in backing this amendment, we have a real chance to finally put an end to this stain on our justice system once and for all.